The Planet Express crew need to make a pit stop. 3 days from Earth with no food supplies and no restaurants in sight, they're desperate for anything edible. But, in a stroke of good fortune, they soon find a planet rich with an edible life form that they find to be one of the most delicious things they've ever tasted. They decide to name these mysterious things Popplers, and a deal struck with the fast food chain Fishy Joe's promises to be a lucrative new venture for the company. Popplers quickly take the Earth by storm, becoming a fast food favorite, but not all are happy with this. Vegetarian activists protest the widespread eating of Popplers, and when Leela discovers a week-old uneaten Poplar talking to her, the Planet Express crew joins them. A firestorm controversy soon erupts over the ethics of eating intelligent creatures, only to be tossed aside when the warlike aliens of Omicron Persei 8 arrive and reveal that the Popplers are the larval stage of their species. The human race has unwittingly eaten billions of the Omicronian young. Lur, the Omicronian ruler, demands justice. For each Omicronian that was eaten, they will eat one human. Pointing out that too few humans exist for that, Zap Brannigan manages to negotiate their demands down to simply eating the first human to eat Popplers, who is revealed to be none other than Leela. Wishing to save the object of his one-sided love, Zap concocts a devious plan to disguise an orangutan as Leela and feed it to Lur instead. The ruse nearly succeeds, but is foiled at the last minute, and after devouring the monkey, the Omicronians demand the real Leela. As Leela is forced into Lur's mouth, the very same Poppler who first spoke to her rushes onto the scene and jumps into her mouth. He introduces himself as Jur, and gives an impassioned speech to all present, entreating his own people to stop this foolish attempt at revenge. His words reach their hearts, and the Omicronians leave in peace, after eating one of the vegetarian activists who is annoying them. Welcome to Space Podcast 3000, where the future is in the past.
So instead of the trouble with tribbles, it's the problem with Popplers.
They're a lot tastier.
This episode is amazing. This episode is fucking hilarious.
It is, even if the concept of it is utterly horrifying.
Which is part of what makes it such a good episode. Yeah, this is a horrific discovery that they make, which of course they treat as a horrific discovery. It's like, we have been eating their children. This is bad.
Yeah, like, just imagine everyone eating this thing, and then it just suddenly turns out, oh, it's sapient with human-level intelligence. That is a frickin' nightmare.
Yeah, which, I mean, they handle it with humor, of course, but they also handle it with a certain level of, this is kind of how a lot of people would react to this sort of thing. The real enemy in this episode is the hippie, who is just... he's all about peace and love, but he's not willing to make any sort of compromises to discuss these sort of things. He is such an asshole.
Little bit. And, you know, funny that you bring him up, because this is the beginning of what I call the Waterfall family saga, with, you know, the introduction of this vegetarian hippie Free Waterfall Jr. Because over the course of the series, we meet, you know, multiple members of this extended family with the surname Waterfall, and they're always some kind of activist, and they always die at the end of the episode.
You could say they fall.
Oh. Yeah, this is one of Futurama's, I think, subtler running gags, and it's one of my favorites, just because once you pick up on it, it's like, oh.
So apparently hippies can be classified as edibles.
Yeah. Which, like, it's kind of an obvious joke, but I've never really seen it done before. I mean, I guess there aren't that many jokes about eating hippies, but...
yeah.
The fact that he eats the hippie and he gets high off of him rather rapidly. It's like, yeah. Stoned Lure is great.
He's hilarious, yeah.
Which, I mean, it's really kind of standard stone talk. It's like, my hands can touch anything except themselves.
Oh, wait, they can.
They call them fingers, but I've never seen them fing. Oh, wait, there they go.
But, like, within the context of the character, Lur being stoned is just a very funny concept, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, A lot more Star Trek references in this episode. You know, there's the title, The Problem with Popplers, which we already know is sort of a riff on the Star Trek episode, The Trouble with Tribbles. And then at the beginning of the episode, Leela makes that line about a Type M planet, which, of course, in Star Trek, a Class M planet is, Earth-like with an oxygen-rich atmosphere. And she mentions Roddenberries. And, of course, Star Trek was made by Gene Roddenberry.
Oh, I thought you said rotten berries.
Yeah, I heard rotten berries, too.
I don't know. I think immediately after the Class M planet line, it seemed pretty obvious that it was Roddenberries.
That's fair.
It could be, yeah.
So, what follows math teachers?
Good question.
Oh, you're not an Omicronian, so it's not obvious. Maybe it's alphabetical order for them.
Who knows? I mean, I don't know. I don't want to know what is responsible for the order that they've decided to eat people.
I kind of liken the joke to people that use the word, use the phrase, etc., when you're supposed to go, from X to Y, or, from A to Z, you have to have a logical progression there. Otherwise, it doesn't work as a colloquialism. So, that's kind of my interpretation of that joke, is, you can find anything, you can find anything there from Xbox to PlayStation. It's that's not how it works. That's not how the phrase works.
I don't know what to tell you, man.
Maybe it's alphabetical and Omicronian.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Tofu lion. This fucking tofu lion is just so sad.
Yeah, that poor lion. That is blatant animal abuse. The cats.
Which, you see them do that with their pets sometimes. They teach you have the cat eating tofu and stuff, and they've had to take cats to the vet for malnutrition for that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Cats are obligate carnivores. They literally are incapable of digesting anything that isn't meat. These hippies, that is some major hypocrisy of them, talking about, harming animals when they are literally killing this poor lion.
Yeah, you feel bad for the poor thing.
Which I'm sure is kind of the joke here, that the hippies are so hippie critical about this sort of thing. But, they talk about trying to start a dialogue and trying to get things, but then when he is literally on national TV talking about the discussion, his only response to anybody else saying anything is, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he would fit right in on Fox News.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's a shame that a lot of, I'm going to say specifically, white vegans are a lot like that.
Yeah. People who refuse to acknowledge that there may, for example, be dietary reasons why someone can't be a vegan or a vegetarian. Maybe they can't digest a particular thing, some medical condition.
Not to mention, veganism isn't cruelty-free, considering certain foods still rely on slave labor or child labor to be harvested.
Oh, definitely.
Well, admittedly, veganism is a closer cruelty-free option, considering the way a lot of animals are treated, which, for the record, is not really the standard in many cases.
Yeah.
But there is certainly an argument against cruelty because of the way the animals are treated. But my argument has always been, in many cases, most of these animals wouldn't even exist if we weren't breeding them for food, which is the entire purpose of the word livestock. They're being bred specifically for this reason. It's the same reason we harvest crops and plant crops for harvest. It's just the same way. It's just these animals are able to move. And
I would be better to simply reform, the meat and agricultural industry than to simply poof it out of existence.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, I don't remember the exact numbers, but several years ago, I read an article talking about because, you see a lot of vegans and vegetarians talk about how, like, oh, if we get rid of cattle ranching and if we just, do farming instead of raising animals, that'll be better for the environment. And in some places, yes, that's true. But there are parts of the world where, based on, like, the amount of water they have and just limits on that, it actually takes a lot of water to maintain farmland, and, like, land for grazing doesn't require nearly as much, like, labor or water to maintain. So for some parts of the world, they just straight up do not have enough water to maintain the level of farmland to make up for if they didn't have, animals to raise for meat.
And again, it's a matter of redundancy. If you focus only on one particular type of food, what happens if there's some sort of a epidemic or a pandemic that hits that particular type of food? That's the reason we lost certain crops of bananas, because they were just that same genetic variety, and the virus went through and wiped the entire species out. So that's why you need to have multiple forms of nutrients. You need to do it because you have to have redundancy. You have to have multiple options.
With bananas specifically, they're a monoculture, so they're all clones of one another.
Exactly, which is really kind of standard with a lot of fruits. They don't want the fruit to change from season to season. They want the same fruit every time because they have it bred for a particular flavor, for a particular texture, for a particular size.
Yeah.
And they want to be able to recreate that every year, which is not how the fruit is supposed to work. It's supposed to take that from the parents. It's supposed to continue to evolve and continue, where it may not be as good the next year, which is not the purpose of the fruit. The purpose of the fruit is to continue to spread the genetics, which is true for any species.
Right.
It's just trying to continue, but it's like, no, we like it the way it is. Which, I mean, there's certainly something to be said about humans forcing that upon other species, but it's like, this is our planet,
Well, there's also the fact that, like, if the fruit is all uniform and, the same size and shape, more or less, it's a lot easier to pack and transport, and so it's less likely to get damaged.
Oh, yeah, that too. Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, you see people talking about, like, ugly fruit and, stuff in, like, weird shapes, or it's like, oh, it's perfectly good, but it's thrown out because it's too ugly for the supermarket, and, like, that's true, but also it would be significantly more expensive and more difficult to transport because it's in a regular shape, which means, if you try to transport all of that, more of it's going to get damaged, which results in even more of it getting thrown out.
Yeah. And if they could breed cubic fruit, that would be amazing. They have cubic watermelons, but they're grown in a box to make them that shape.
Yeah, but a lot of those ugly foods, ugly fruits, vegetables, they are used.
Yeah, there are companies that sell those. They specifically sell those kind of fruits because it's cheaper.
What I mean is they're, cooked down into sauces.
Oh, yeah.
Applesauce, other things.
Yeah, like a non-saleable apple is going to be used to make, like, cider or something. It's not just going to get thrown out. I mean, that's even just talking about the economics of it, that's not economically viable. Why would you throw it out when you could turn it into something else that you can sell?
Exactly, which is the same argument about, like, breaking limbs on animals. Like, you can't do that. It's just not economically viable. I mean, not even from a cruelty standpoint. It doesn't work from an economic standpoint, which is, again, getting into capitalism. That's the thing you need to focus on. Whether someone is evil or not, look towards the economics. If it's not economically viable, they're probably not evil.
So, like, there's one other thing I want to bring up about these vegetarian protesters. And it's
eating is murder. Yeah.
Yeah, that sign, because, like, okay, does that include eating fruits and vegetables?
Technically speaking, yes. Anything organic.
Like, do these people think, like, fruit has feelings or something? It's just,
maybe they're breatharians.
Oh. Like, haven't people actually died from trying to do that?
I remember hearing a story, like, one of the biggest, like, breatharian activists or, like, promoters in the world. They got video of him coming out of a 7-Eleven with Snickers bars.
Yeah, I remember reading about that.
It's just the fact that it's not just that he was buying food; it's Snickers bars.
Actually, something I just realized. So with veganism in particular, I forgot to bring this up earlier. It is not a natural diet for human beings. A human cannot live on a vegan diet without, like, vitamin supplements and such, because there are certain nutritions that you can only get from animal products, whether that's, like, milk, eggs, or, meat. Like, every vegan I've ever met has had to eat, had to take various supplements to make up for that.
And that vitamin has to come from somewhere.
Yeah. Humans are omnivores. Our body is designed to eat a variety of things. And I'm not saying, like, veganism is bad. If that's the choice you want to make for your life, more power to you. It's just, when you try to push other people into it and, tell them that, like, oh, it's the only moral way to live.
And these options exist because it's living in a particular society. So if you change the society that everybody lives in, certain options become unavailable again. Like, if everybody was forced to have a vegan thing and, like, have no cruelty, then there would be no way of getting these vitamins just for mass manufacture. They would have to go to, like, some sort of synthetic stimulant.
Well, that's not even what I'm talking about, but, so we've gone about on this one topic for a while. There is more to talk about in this episode.
Yeah, the Omicronians. I freaking love the Omicronians.
They are great recurring antagonists.
Again, two episodes with great recurring antagonists in a row. The mom episode and then this one. You have Lur trying to eat this, and then Unda is like, "Are you sure you want to eat that?" It's like, oh, come on.
And actually, in that scene, so we have Free Waterfall Jr. revealing Zap's deception to save the orangutan. And this just leads to the Omicronians demand to eat Leela instead. And they still eat the orangutan anyway. Like, what the fuck did he think was going to happen?
You did nothing.
Again, it's the short-sightedness of that's what their joke is, the short-sightedness of these kind of people that only think about their moral obligation to never do anything that does this, and it gets them nowhere. I like the kind of joke that when the orangutan starts cleaning the hippie's hair, he actually finds stuff in there to eat.
But, like, just seriously, what the hell did he think was going to happen, and does he really consider a monkey's life more valuable than a person's?
Of course he does.
I'm not saying animals' lives are worthless or anything, but his priorities are extremely out of whack.
My job here is done, but you didn't do anything.
He just
In fact, you made things worse.
Yeah, because the monkey still gets eaten.
Yeah, the monkey got eaten, and the Omicronians are still not placated. So what have you accomplished? And thankfully, he does get eaten at the end, which I'm sure was the joke. Is they wanted to create a character so unlikable that we cheer his death at the end.
I mean, I'm not going to cheer his death, but it's like you should have seen this coming, dude.
One thing I noticed is that the female Omicronians have, like, cheetah spots on them. Or leopard spots. I'm not sure which it is. I think it's leopard spots.
Spots. That's an interesting form of sexual dimorphism.
Well,
Yeah.
the females also don't have the horns on top, right?
You're right. I don't think they do.
That's really interesting. But can we talk about Kif and his artistry?
Yeah. Kif as a hairstylist is very amusing.
Probably would enjoy that.
And the fact that they have this thing that just kind of creates the hair on the head.
I wonder if maybe at some point he should retire from military life and open a hair salon or something.
Probably be a lot happier.
Oh, probably.
Oh, absolutely.
And actually, speaking of Kif, so he notes that 198 billion Popplers were eaten. And I when he said that, I was curious how much Planet Express had earned in royalties since Fishy Joe was offering them $1 per dozen.
Right.
So I did the math, and I don't know if my math is right, but 198 billion Popplers, that is 16.5 billion dozens. So potentially, Fry, Leela, and Bender should have earned $16.5 billion from this. Which means the three of them should be multi-billionaires now, but this never comes up.
Fry for the second time.
Yeah.
Again, something involving fish.
It's just that this comes up, that they, say this, but it never comes up in the episode, or any future episode. And I get it wasn't the point of the story, but you'd think it would warrant, addressing.
Maybe they stopped eating them before they could get paid.
I mean,
maybe they violated their contract by speaking out against them.
I don't know, but like, regardless, they do have that contract, and it was like, even if, you know, people stopped eating Popplers by the end, they're still owed that money.
The money that they would have made if they were selling the Popplers just on their own, just nowhere near as much volume, which is certainly an interesting way of splitting it. It's like, I'll sell it for $2 and give you one. It's like, well, if I don't have to do this work anymore.
Yeah, that's actually an extremely generous cut as these things go.
Yeah.
Like, typically, in real life, you would have seen Fishy Joe drive a much harder bargain.
Maybe 25 cents.
I mean, it still would have been a crap ton of money, let's be real, but...
Oh, yeah, totally.
Of course, at the end, you have him eating all this really vile stuff. Well, not vile, but like veal and suckling pig and dolphin.
The most controversial of foods.
I don't think I've ever had veal.
No, even the South Park guys, they were like, we're not in favor of veganism. We're not crazy vegetarians or anything, but maybe just don't eat veal. Like, even they drew the line there.
Yeah, fair enough, I guess. Even the worst people have to have standards. And actually, on that note of just weird things to eat, there's that joke about test sickles, you know, the frozen Rocky Mountain oysters on a stick. So I don't know how many of our listeners even know what Rocky Mountain oysters are, because it is kind of an obscure delicacy. So they're a dish served in parts of the American South, and from what I've heard, maybe also parts of Canada. And it's made from...
pretty much any part of the Rocky Mountains, really.
Yeah, it's made from fried bull testicles.
Either bull or sheep or some sort of bovine.
I was once traveling in the American South, and I was at a restaurant, and they served Rocky Mountain oysters. And one of the people in the group I was with suggested ordering some, and all of the rest of us simultaneously looked at her and said, "No, we are not getting that."
She probably thought they were actually oysters.
Yeah, which is, again, is kind of a tongue-in-cheek reference. The name itself is sort of a joke, because you can't get oysters in the mountains. So what are they going to do? Which, they're just kind of like flattened testicles. I hear they're very spongy, actually.
It's one of those things where it's like often like tourists are sometimes tricked into eating them without knowing what they are, like as a practical joke.
Well, either tricked or they know what it is. Yeah, either they're tricked into it or they know what it is and they do it as sort of a gag just to say they did it.
And now I know there are people who like these things, but just it does not sound appealing to me.
Gator's good.
Yeah, I've heard Gator is tasty. I've never
It does
had
taste like chicken.
I mean, chicken doesn't really have much of a taste anyway, so a lot of things taste like chicken.
That's the Matrix for you.
Yeah. So Hermes, a line that bothers me, Hermes remarks, the only names not yet trademarked are Popplers and Zitzels. And how is that even remotely possible? Like, it's not like there's some upper limit to name length, so theoretically, a literally infinite number of potential names should exist.
They'd just be really long and consonantive.
Yeah, and like maybe a limited number of pronounceable names at a viable length for like marketing, but other names should exist, and he doesn't specify this. So like I get that it's a joke, it bothered me.
Yeah, you could get into that infinite hotel kind of.
Oh yeah, get in the infinite hotel, you just move everybody over by one.
I mean, mathematically, it can be proven that different infinities exist, because math is weird. Infinity is just dark magic.
And names are just one of the more infinite things.
That's just one of the important things about writing comedy, is that you have to know exactly how much realism to have. Like the fact that they didn't want to have this whole scene where they're trying to think of a good name or anything. So just Hermes looks up on the computer that tells them all the names that have been trademarked and what's still available. It's like that premise itself is funny, and then they put it into a funny situation. That's comedy writing. That's like, you know exactly how much absurdity to add. which is really kind of the beauty of a show like this, where they know exactly how much they need to do to keep things realistic or keep things comedic. Because if it is too far off the walls, then there's nothing to relate to.
Right, like, I'm not going to be a pedantic asshole and call this a plot hole, because, like, I think people searching for plot holes where they don't exist and calling anything that isn't perfectly explained or that has an explanation you can, reasonably think of within, like, 2 minutes, like, calling those things plot holes and such is, I think, the worst thing to happen to media criticism. But
and it's even worse in comedy.
Yeah, but, like, this was a particular instance where it was just something that bothered me. Just because it doesn't work that way.
Mom says you can't name things certain things. She's bought all of them.
I mean, if she has trademarked the concept of screen doors, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, there you go. But why wouldn't she buy those other two? That's a plot hole! Oh my god.
Zitzel's isn't that bad a name.
Although, I think my favorite joke in this episode is just when Fry's like, Leela, that's the second billboard you crashed into this week. I didn't realize the opening credits were canon.
Every time, yeah. Canon every time. So she's crashing into a new billboard every single week of the show. And of course that also assumes that each episode takes place in a separate week.
I mean, that would make sense, especially given that, the...
Comedy of the week.
Yeah, like, the date given in each season generally matches more or less the year that the episode aired.
Came out, yeah.
Just a millennium in the future. So, like, the episodes that aired in 2001 are in 3001. The ones from, 2002 were in 3002, and so on. So, it would make sense if, like, each episode was just the next week.
If we're talking jokes that we really liked in this episode, I like the one where they introduce her on the news, like, Taranga Leela. It's like, Taranga?
That's her name, Philip.
Philip?
No, that was a good joke, because, everyone always refers to Fry as
Fry.
And, Leela, no one ever really brings up her surname.
Yeah, because Leela sounds like her... It sounds like a first name.
I always assumed that Leela was her first name, and just for whatever reason, they put her family name first, especially since, her parents are Taranga Munda and Taranga Morris.
Mm.
So I guess for whatever reason, they just have their last name first.
Which is actually pretty standard in a lot of Asian cultures. You put the surname first, which would be more appropriate for Amy, honestly.
Yeah, like, there are other languages where they do that. It's interesting that they do that with Leela specifically.
Yeah.
Especially the fact that she's supposed to be an alien, too, so...
Yeah.
Now I want popcorn chicken.
Oh, yeah, which, I mean, what would Popplers taste like? I would imagine it's kind of like chicken nuggets, but made of, like, fish.
I don't think it matters. What puts me off is the fact that they just eat them raw. They don't even, like, cook them or anything.
There's certain foods you eat raw.
Oh, sure, but, like, especially since they don't even know what it is and it's from another planet, it just seems dangerous to me.
That thing on her arm said they're not poisonous.
The thing on her arm, which in a previous episode I think was called the Ristlil Jackamator, whatever the hell that means.
They probably taste better than the mushrooms growing on Fry's bath mat. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Which does happen, like, if you don't clean your bathroom well. And of course, if you do start getting mushrooms, it can be a real pain to get them to go away permanently. Because they just, if you keep coming back.
TZ, the summer camp that I went to, one year, one of the showers in my cabin got mushrooms growing up through the shower drain.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. We've had mushrooms in the past because the wall, the paneling for the bathroom wall was not made for being in a shower.
So you get mildew and everything.
Yeah.
So they have long been since replaced.
Yeah, we've gotten mold in the back hallway in my building because we're on basement level and it's flooded multiple times in the past. So they've literally, on multiple occasions, had to just dig out the entire wall and get rid of the mold and redo the wall. Yeah. And then, of course, after the most recent storm, my apartment also, part of it flooded, so they had to put down a dehumidifier and a bunch of fans and leave them there for like a week and a half to make sure that mold doesn't form.
Yeah. Mold forms easily.
I mean, you'll even see mold in, like, your bath or shower if you don't clean it regularly.
Mm-hmm.
But mushrooms are another whole level.
Oh, totally.
So one joke that I'm surprised you didn't mention, TZ, Fishy Joe's serving extreme walrus juice.
Extreme walrus juice.
I have no idea what that would even be.
Yeah, what the absolute fuck is walrus juice?
Maybe it's made of blubber, or...
How do you juice a walrus?
Some sort of glandular secretion?
I would guess it's made of blubber, because, I mean, they have whale oil, and, like, so I would guess, like, walrus oil would be similar.
Maybe, but why would you want to drink that?
Because it has a cool name, walrus juice. Ride the walrus.
That's also actually a really dumb tagline, let's be honest.
It's no dumber than other stupid catchphrases.
Happy tastes good.
It's interesting that they always have the Slurm advertisement in the episode when the event itself is brought by Fishy Joe's.
Right.
I'm surprised they didn't end up eating Fishy Joe at the end. Because he really was kind of one of the main big villains in this. It's like, we even if eating Popplers is wrong, even if they are alive, good luck getting us to stop.
I mean, he's a capitalist. He doesn't want to give up a source of profit, even if it's unethical.
Exactly.
He's just being a capitalist.
Yeah, hashtag just capitalist things.
Yeah, just capitalist things. I think we're 28 for 28 now.
Something like that.
Anyway, I think it's about time to go get some lunch.
Thank you for listening to Space Podcast 3000. Your three voices of the future are Nova Altman, Doug Hancox, and Eden Valerie. The theme music is Voxel Revolution by Kevin MacLeod. You can hear more episodes of Space Podcast 3000 on YouTube or at soundcloud.com/spacepod3k. You can support the show and listen to new episodes a full week early at patreon.com/spacepod3k. Follow us on Twitter at spacepod3k. Be sure to join us next time as the Planet Express crew wonder what might be in Anthology of Interest 1.